Hey up and welcome to the Temple of Bleh episode P. This is yet another entry into the history of Roadrunner Records series. This one kind of sits adjacent to the main ones that I've been doing. This is the conversation with Kurt Shaw. So Kurt was the producer of The Great Cat's debut album with Roadrunner, Worship Me or Die, recorded back in '87, I believe. So together we try and wade through some of the more enigmatic parts of the Great Cat's persona, try and get really down to the core of what she's all about. And obviously Kurt was very much in the trenches at the start of her career, so he's in a very unique position to tell me all about that stuff. A bit of housekeeping: my audio on this deteriorates, so my voice eventually will become crackly and weird. I can still kind of make out what I'm saying, but then again, I am used to my own voice, so apologies if it's a little bit difficult to hear. It's worth mentioning at this point as well that Kurt is still clear as a bell. It's just me that sounds dodgy. Anyway, so Kurt is a singer-songwriter, and you can check him out on Facebook, as is his son. His son is a very, very, very talented pop singer and songwriter. His name is Corey Shaw, S-H-O-R-E, and you can find both of those guys on Facebook. As well as singer-songwriting duties, Kurt is also the president and chief creative officer of the D4 Creative Group, which is one of Philadelphia's leading advertising firms. So I was especially grateful for Kurt's time, as he's a very, very, very busy man. Anyway, man, let's jump into it. Again, apologies for the audio. 1, 2, fuck shit up.
Hey, man.
Hi, Kit. How are you doing?
Good. It's life is just so friggin' funny. I was just talking to these friends of mine, and her brother, this woman's brother, is a double bass speed metal drummer.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't thought about the Great Cat record in years, and I am not kidding. An hour ago, yes. So tell me about some of the records you produced when I was doing music all the time. And, my recording studio, we did all the Cinderella records.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah. And then I produced this really crazy woman, very talented, The Great Cat, a speed metal record. And it was the only one that I had done and here all of a sudden you email me for an interview. It's just the funniest. Life is fucking crazy.
It's great. It's to be honest, man. What I do is I do this. I've been doing a history of Roadrunner Records, the whole label.
I got it.
There's a few parts in the history of that label which I just stop and go, "That's really interesting, and it deserves its own focus." And the cat is one of them. So I started putting pen to paper today. I've got loads of material, and I was like, right, if I can just get 20 minutes of a script, and then I'll build like a presentation around it. But I thought, let's see if I can get people around those projects, because I know it was always quite a small band and quite a small team. So I was like, I wonder if anyone's kicking about these days. And I just sort of gave you a quick Google, and there you were.
It's fucking unbelievable. But anyway, so go ahead.
Let's jump straight into it, man. So if I'm not mistaken, The Great Cat, was she your first production credit?
No. The real brief history for me is that I was signed as a recording artist when I was 19.
Right.
On a band called Dialogue. Mm-hmm. And it's still out there. I get calls every once in a while. Some people want to re-release it. And then I opened up a studio and started helping the Philadelphia rock scene, mm-hmm. And we were like right in the middle of it. And my partners, we had a studio out in the woods called KHAEM, K-H-A-E-M, and cool. Rock bands from all over the world would come. Mm-hmm. So we did all the Cinderella records except for one, I think. And then, because Philly's known more as an R&B town, like black music. So yeah. we were pop rock guys. So,
the niche.
What?
You were the niche in the town.
Yeah, for the rock stuff. So, and we had the studio was in it was something called the old Derringer gun factory, which the rumor was it built the gun that shot Abraham Lincoln.
Wow.
So. It was a really cool place. And we had this, we kept one of the natural rooms. So it was 25-foot ceilings, and the drums sounded like fucking cannons. So people from all over the world would come and record their drums. We did Operation Mindcrime, that album from, what was the band?
Queensryche.
Queensryche. Yeah, Queensryche. I don't know, a bunch of acts. So no, but I had a hit right before that that I co-wrote and produced called "Catch Me I'm Falling," which was a dance record by Pretty Poison.
Okay.
You know, so and then I produced some other acts, but I was really trying to get signed. I mean, we had a couple recording contract offers. I was the main writer and lead singer of the bands that we were in, but for some reason or another, like they either fell through or my other partners didn't want to do. In fact, we got some English. It's funny because we got English. We were really a couple English. Uh, Whoever signed, what was it, MCA? Who ELO's label wanted to sign us. ELO
Right. Okay.
from London.
Yeah.
But my partner said, "Oh, well, we want an American deal." And I said, "Well, you know what? We may not get an American deal. Sometimes it's better to come in as an import." So anyway, that was that.
Just seeing,
So,
just seeing who signed those initially. ELO, Jeff Lynne's ELO. It looks like it's quite a myriad. I think there's Harvest, Warner Brothers. There's quite a few. I'm not sure if there's just one. There's EMI in there as well. I think they might have done some label hopping in their earlier days.
Yeah, I mean, it was a label. Our manager got us the offer, but we didn't. We said no. So who knows? You go through life, and that's it.
So how did you get approached with the Great Cat then?
What happened was really interesting. Have you ever, did you speak to her? I'm sure you have. Have you spoken to her?
I asked her for an interview, to which she said, "Send me 5 questions by email." So I did, and he said, "Right, I'll give you the answers once you promote this new album that I've got out, Beethoven's 250th birthday, coming out in December." So I did that, and she answered all the questions. But yeah, it was quite light on detail, heavy on cat, I guess, is the best way of describing it.
Yeah, she called me, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago. Kurt, you're the only producer I ever respected. You want to produce my next record? And I said no. And I thanked her. I mean, I was very. What happened was I forgot who she had. She had a producer, and she was a firebrand, as you can imagine. Juilliard graduate. She had not one blues lick in her body. She didn't bend notes. No. There's no bending. It's all precision playing, like a violin would play, right? And she fired the producer, like in a kind of in a rage, like, "Get the fuck out of here," and just, "I hate you. And she knew that she had heard that I was a musician, it's pretty accomplished. And she goes, and I was the one who had met her. And I get along with a lot of people. So she goes, "Kurt, would you, you're a musician. I can't stand these fucking producers who don't know how to, don't know music. Will you produce me?" Right. So I said, on one condition, and I was really strict about it. I said, there will be no, there will be, I am not a person that you say fuck you to. I'm from Philadelphia. We boot Santa Claus, so, I won't tolerate it. I won't tolerate it at all. We're there to do work. We're here to make great music.
Yeah.
As long as you have that attitude, I'll produce it. But if you go off on one time, fuck you, and I was right in her face. Yeah, and she respected it, like any woman, honestly. It was, and we went through the record pretty quickly. We plowed through it, like I had all the charts and everything was charted out totally. I mean, she got, she would get a little bit rough with the drummer, or she goes, "Come on, you motherfucker," like she just curses all the time. But that was okay. I mean, she was a perfectionist, and the stuff as you.
Did she ever drop the? Yeah. This is the interesting thing, because she is a gifted musician.
Yeah.
But it seems like the attitude and the front is kind of what doesn't jive with people, and as a result, that's why she's not doing the Yngwie Malmsteen gig. She's not doing what Jason Becker would have done and things like that. But I think because people didn't. Sorry, go on.
Well, no, yeah. I mean, I think. Listen, I cannot tell you anything. My relationship with her was great. It was just very professional. She respected my demand about staying professional. And even when she called me, I don't know how many years ago now, it all kind of blends together. She was great. She goes, she was really complimentary. And I just, I'm running an agency. I just couldn't do it. If I were just doing music, I would have done another one.
Did you, when the shtick, I don't know how she would have presented it. It was going to be called Worship or Die, and it was going to be kind of have a very strong dominatrix sort of sadomasochist approach. Did that ever you in any way, or did you just think, fuck it, it's just the music, let's get this down?
I didn't care. Yeah, I was just looking at the music. It was really, and it was very challenging. I mean, that's again, everything was charted out, you know. So, I mean, that's just never done. I mean, we had a lot of metal bands and speed metal acts. They didn't chart. They didn't chart anything. It was just all rehearsed. They just knew their parts. You know, most of them, I would say half of them couldn't read music. You know, but she's Juilliard. You know, so.
How long Roadrunner gave you in the studio?
What?
Speaking of which, do you remember how long Roadrunner gave you in the studio? Because usually it's like the budget for a debut album of that time for Roadrunner is about $5,000, and that's typically about a week, 2 weeks in the studio. So that's why the bands will have come in having rehearsed, because they only get one shot really. But obviously, if Cat's coming from a completely different background, it's a completely different approach they would have had to manage.
I would look. You know, I'm going by memory. But I think it was probably 8 or 9 days, maybe 10, because she fired the producer like the second day, you know. So I had to familiarize myself with the music just to know what she was trying to do, you know. And so you
were brought in on the job when it was started, so it wasn't like a few weeks before, hey Kurt, can you do this record? It was like Eric Stoltz being sacked from Back to the Future. You were running in to save the day.
We had 2 floors. So the studio was on the first floor, or the second floor. My offices were on the first floor.
Right.
And I heard from my partner who was engineering it. He said, "Oh, Wayne, there's, you wouldn't believe it was a big blow up." And then she just came downstairs and just, Kurt, I know you're a musician.
Okay.
Will you be willing to produce a record? And then I said, well, let me, I was like, I called it was like a Curtis interrupt us.
That's it, man. That's fucking crazy.
I talked to my partner about it, and we just went for it. I mean, it was fast. It wasn't 2 weeks. I mean, and I think, the budget was more for her because she was such a kind of iconic, like she was very,
It's nothing had been done quite like that before. Because I mean, your Malmsteens and your Jason Beckers, they're very much shred oriented, like Cat was, but they would often have their own angle and a lot of original music. I mean, I know Cat did as well, but her entire shtick was, I can do all of the Brandenburg concertos in 45 minutes. That's the whole angle.
Yep.
And that was unique.
Flight of the Bumblebee, wasn't it on that? I think Flight of the Bumblebee was on the record, right?
It might be that one or the next one. There was Beethoven on Speed, which was the follow-up. That was Flight of the Bumblebee. Yeah.
For me, it was just, I mean, listen, we did it very quickly. I mean, I think the budget was not 20, but it was definitely more than, if I remember correctly, it was probably between 12 and 15,
Yeah.
And
did you ever speak to Steve Ricardo, who was her A&R guy at the time?
What was his name?
Steve Ricardo.
Oh yeah. I mean, briefly.
Lost to the Sands of Time.
Yeah, Sands of Time.
Yeah.
But no, listen, I enjoyed it. It was really an experience. I had never done anything like that before.
Yeah.
And most of the records I produced were always something new, because I was like, completely new. And I had this look. It's the same attitude about people. Like, I don't prejudge anybody. Like, if it's, if you're there and you want to do great work, then let's go for it. So
only everyone else thought like that.
What?
If only everyone else thought like that, because she does deserve to be recognized these days, I think. Because she's an interesting case study, because I think when you're younger, you tend to get a lot of advice, which is don't compromise on anything in your life. Just always go for what you want to do. And Cat fucking did. And now she's sort of, she is in obscurity to an extent. She's not quite as big as where she should be, I think. But had she just let up a little bit, I think it could have been a very different story.
Oh yeah. I agree with you. I mean, I talked to her about it too. And it wasn't, it's interesting. I'm trying to recall something. Like, I don't think of her as a dark person. My recollection of her, again, and maybe it's because, my friends will always say, Kurt, you're like an empath, and I look at her heart, and I looked at what, she was trying to do. I mean, I was probably at that time, when was the record recorded? 1989?
87.
87. So, I was in my early 30s. She was probably what, 21, 20?
30, I think she must have been 20, 21.
Yeah.
Straight out of Juilliard then.
Yeah. So I just looked, she was just, another female artist, and all female artists are fucking insecure. I mean, that's just the way they are. I don't care what kind of music they do. They're all insecure. But I didn't really, I didn't look at her as anything dark at all. I mean, we had some nice conversations, and where I was able to talk to her outside of that thing.
Right, to context, yeah.
Yeah. And I look, she was incredibly hardworking. I mean, she absolutely is a perfectionist. She absolutely knows what she's doing. The weird thing is that there's no bending notes. I mean, there's no blues influence. When you think about it, even all speed metal still has blues. It still has rock and roll is still blues. You know what I mean? It comes from blues. You know what I mean?
The only other guitarist I know who deliberately picks every note and doesn't do a lot of bending and a lot of legato is Zakk Wylde of Ozzy Osbourne.
What's his name?
Zakk Wylde.
Okay.
He was Ozzy Osbourne's guitarist.
Yeah.
Other than that, you're absolutely right. There is, I mean, even for Zakk, it's a deliberate choice. But with every other speed metal guitarist and metal musician, there's always that blues influence. So it is really interesting that she came from a completely different mindset.
Yeah, completely. I mean, basically using the axe, instead of a violin, it was a guitar, and she played it like a violinist. And believe me, violinists. I'll tell you that this is the interesting thing. Like, I've produced a lot of pop records too, and I would bring in string players. Yeah. And I just tell you a little story. So if you're doing orchestration and you bring in horn players and string players, this is absolutely true. I bet you talk to any producer, they'll say the same thing. Horn players, they're really spitting, right? They're spitting into their instrument.
Yeah.
And they're usually guys. It doesn't matter, guys, but mostly usually guys, and they're cool. They're just, they're loose. They're just string players, men or women. Like, there's the funniest thing. Like, you give them the chart, and they'll go. And I've used the Philadelphia Orchestra people, which is very good orchestra. They'll play it, and they'll say, they'll look at each other and say, "How did you do?" "Yeah, that was great." "Okay, well, that was great. We're finished." And you say, "No, they're not." They are finicky. They're just a totally different breed of kind of character, and you have to say, unless they're session players, and actually these people were session players. They just think it's weird. It's weird. So she's a string player who plays guitar, and then she adds all that grit with her personality, all that rock hard grit, everything about her. Very unique.
Totally, man. Totally. It's how did she pitch her mission statement to you? I'm coming to the end now. I just wanted to shoot the shit with you about it. How did she pitch it to you? Because I kind of see it as she wanted people to get into Beethoven and get into Mozart and to the classical stuff, but she just wanted to bridge that gap. That's all she wanted to do between modern music and that stuff, because it's worth listening to. And there's someone who used to play, I still play guitar, but I'm not as active in my education as I used to be. And when I really wanted to get into classical music, and she would have been totally appropriate to gateway me between those two worlds, and I didn't have that. But was that the mission statement?
Yeah, no, she didn't have a mission statement per se, but that was it. I mean, she did. I mean, she was passionate about classical music, and how can you do both? Was it possible to do both? And that format was, there's not a classical player in the world that would ever think that could even be closely be done. No classical musician would ever want to hear that. I mean, intellectually, it's completely what? And no, that's what she wanted to do. So, but the interesting thing though, with speed metal, I mean, by going up to 180 and 200 beats a minute, and all that stuff is, that has nothing to do with classical music. That had to do with
energy,
and it's almost like an athlete.
Yeah.
It's an athletic. Nobody can play this faster than me.
Yeah.
Right. That was what that was. That was all about. I can play this faster than any fucking person in the world. So that was more of almost like a macho, like, be the best in the world kind of thing. It had nothing to do with the music. It just had to do with how fast I can do it,
So we have the great cat who's like the worship me or die, the very in your face character, which you dispelled on that first day and say, we're not fucking about here, cat. Sorry about that.
Say that again.
And so we got the character of the cat who is worship me or die, the BDSM, all that stuff, which you dispelled on the first day. So let's take the attitude out of the room. Let's get the job done. So I'm going to follow this up with the pretty obvious question. Is the great cat a character that Catherine Thomas is wearing?
Well, you mean, so is the question, is this a mask or is this her? Is that your question?
Correct. Yeah. Is she putting it on, or is she through and through fucking worship me or die, motherfucker?
It's a good question. I think that's a question for a therapist, but I would say she's absolutely true to herself, but there is a soft side to her.
Yeah.
That she will not, I mean, I got to see it because she trusted me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she wasn't like, she never talked about, some nights I just want to cry, or, I just feel romantic. I mean, it was nothing like, that was never the case.
Yeah.
But her passion, there was a vulnerability there. That's all I can tell you. I mean, I it's too long ago to tell you a specific story about why I felt that, but I felt she was, it was, again, I listen, I've studied women and, and relationships and stuff. Trust is always an issue, Trust is the hardest thing. You think about it all your life, you don't have, but when you get trust, you get the vulnerability. Yeah. Without that, no vulnerability, right? So with everybody else that I saw her with, she was hardcore cat, motherfucker, With me, no. No, I would say I think I was probably like the big brother or something, like I was the wise brother, like she could trust, and I never made her feel, I was very complimentary to what she was trying to do, and she was a perfectionist, and she, the fact that I understood music, that her respect went like that. Like I don't know, I don't think she could work. Like the other guy was more of an engineer producer,
John Matthias, I think his name was.
Yeah, I think it was like he was engineering and producing at the same time, and he had no idea. He was not a musician, so he couldn't talk to her about, wait a minute, that's, you're off time or whatever. He really, he couldn't talk to her on that level. And I had the fucking charts on the SSL console, I was going through it. Okay.
Oh, right. So John Matthias was the follow-up. I don't know who preceded you.
What was it?
Sorry, John Matthias was Beethoven on Speed. That was the follow-up for before you. Yeah. The guy, it can either, if it's anything, if Discogs can tell me anything, it's either Jim Campbell, Joe Alexander, or Ryan Dawn.
No, okay, so Joe Alexander was my partner. So he was an engineer.
Okay.
And Jim Campbell was also an assistant engineer.
Right. Okay.
So Jim Campbell was an employee of mine. Who else?
Ryan Dawn.
Who? What was the name?
Name is Ryan Dawn. D-O-R.
Oh yeah, Ryan Dorn was another. He was an assistant engineer. He was another employee at Cajun.
So none of those,
they were all part of my team.
Yeah, cool. So the guy before you gets no credit at all.
No.
That's fine then.
Oh no, he was fired.
Just trying to find the name. That's all.
He was fucking fired. That was it. Yeah.
Fair
So
enough.
I had respect for her as a person, not as a woman or a man. And if I had been the opposite, if I was insecure, she would have spit me out. She would have totally spit me out, you know.
Yeah.
And not to be conceited, but maybe it's a little bit. But you know, that also that inner confidence for me, like you know, when I was single, I dated models that were 6 foot tall. I'm 5'8". I joke, I say I'm a Jewish 5'8", which is 5'7.5". And because I don't, you know, like I have a 6'4" personality, you know, so it didn't, and I don't have to prove myself to her. It was really a working, let's do the work. It was all about getting the work done. Nothing else mattered. Nothing else mattered. And then you can talk about other stuff, you know, like what was your parents like? And, you know, again, I don't remember enough about it, but, you know, I don't view her at all as a dark character. My recollection of her is not dark. My recollection is she understood her market. She knew worship me or die is because she really believed that, you know, it was important. I mean, she definitely had like, it was important for a woman. I mean, I don't know if there were any women speed metal artists at that time. Were there?
I'm not too sure. There were definitely women artists. I don't know what am I thinking of. Jade was a band that was fronted by a woman, Lita Ford, and the Runaways. But the one I don't think there were any. I don't think there were any shredders. I think she's certainly unique in that regard.
No, I don't think, you know, and I think that I was very important to her. You know, a woman doing this kind of basically it was a man's music, and she was breaking. She was breaking,
especially at that time.
Male dominated, 99.9% male dominated.
Yeah,
you know, that's why she had to, you know, she was always ready to fight. But for me, I didn't present myself as, you know, hey, fuck you, you know, you're a woman, you can't fuck it. You know, I had none of that. So great respect for her. And I'm glad, listen, you know, and no drugs, nothing. She had no there was no drugs in her life at all, you know. And in fact, I would bet you anybody, I mean, she wanted to fire the drummer a few times, but somehow he, you know, I mean, I did insist though. I said, look, if we're working together, you know, I don't care. You want to fire the drummer, that's fine, but no abuse in the studio. I didn't want anybody to be abused in that, you're a fucking ass. There was not, you know, I didn't want any of that. We had to respect each other because otherwise you can't get work done. You know, you can't do it through an abusive culture. How she dealt with other albums, I have no idea, but that's the way I managed the session. And then we got it done, you know?
Yeah. Interesting. I've got one more for you, then I'll let you crack on with it. Thanks so much for doing this, by the way. Completely out of the blue, complete cold open. I totally appreciate it.
It's fine. You know, I'll tell you, what's so ironic about this is that not one fucking hour before I got your email, I hadn't even thought about the Gray Cat. This woman's brother, this woman who I'm kind of starting to go, her brother is a speed metal guy. And she said, did you ever do any metal records or any? And I said, well, we did all the Cinderella records. I played piano on Long Cold Winter. And and then I told her about this, you know, the Gray Cat. And then you called an hour later. Like, that's one of those things, you know. Isn't it funny how that works?
It's so crazy, man. I'm gonna bring that around to the craziness, because one thing I ask all my interviewees, I know this was really impromptu, but I ask everyone this, is have you ever seen a ghost?
Well, let me tell you something about a ghost. So I told you that we built our studio in the Derringer Gun Factory. So, and when we were building it, and this is true story, and there were artists that came into our studio. I mean, I met Steve Tyler, who we almost did the Aerosmith record that wound up re-breaking them. They're Love in an Elevator.
Permanent Vacation?
Before Bruce Fairbairn. Before they met Bruce Fairbairn, they came to Cage and he was talking about, and it didn't happen. Oh my gosh, you know, it was really great. I mean, he was like as animated as you can imagine. But anyway, and we were building the studio, and then toward the end, because we had to get it done, we were sleeping there on the floor, you know. And I swear, I dreamt that there were ghosts, and they were like, it was like one of those like cartoons where you see your soul trying to be ripped out of your. And so I was a Beatle, you know, I grew up on the Beatles. So I started I said, I'm not going to let that. And I just started, all you need is love. Dun, 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 dun.
Is this in the dream, or is this?
While this ghost is trying to take me, I started singing All You Need Is Love, and that defeated him. They couldn't take me. So, and my partner swears, Joe Alexander, he did a lot of the night sessions. And we had a big glass, and then the couch was what was behind, so you'd only see reflections. And he would see this ghost walking on the back, and he would turn around and wouldn't be there. So I'm pretty sure Cajun was, that building was built in the 1800s, like 1830 or 6 or something. That if there were ghosts, there was, somebody was there.
That's it, man.
I mean, what we believe is that somebody was murdered there, and that's why, and somebody was tortured there. Right around the corner, there was an old insane asylum,
right,
like about a mile away. So who knows,
Yeah, that's crazy, man.
Listen, you know what? The universe is far more mysterious than we know.
Exactly.
And science and I think we're getting closer and closer to understand, but I kind of look at everything as energy, and I don't think energy can't be destroyed or created, right? It can, it transforms. So who knows, right?
It's a very musician sort of approach to that question. And it's very common across that circle. Everyone's like, well, look, there's so much we don't understand. But what we do know is there's certain vibes.
Yep.
And that dictates more than we think.
Yeah. I mean, I've been into this year has been an evolution for me because I've been very focused on positive vibration and energy. And I would, everybody I come into contact, I mean, look, I got this bracelet. See this bracelet here? This? Yeah. It's a Buddhist bracelet. I just got it. They say prayers over it, and it takes about a month to get. Black obsidian. It's called a wealth bracelet.
Cool.
Got it in July, and during COVID, and the day that I got it, within a day or two, we started getting new clients, and a huge client, like $100,000 a month client, came in. I mean, and I do, there's a law of attraction. Right. There are these energies. So when you put out positive, good energy, stay away from the toxic shit, because bad energy that's why, it's tragic. So many of these bands, a lot of times the leaders they self-destruct, and the ones that are more grounded don't. I mean, Cinderella, Tommy Kiefer is a very grounded guy, did he drink a little bit? Yeah, but not too much. I mean, he was grounded. He was a songwriter, and that's what he did. And the bands that made it were the most focused, and grounded. But the ones that don't, it's not that they don't make it, but they, and so I've been really focused on, trying to stay very positive with energy, and it works.
It shows just talking to you, to be honest. It's been it shows just talking to you. It's a very, very easy conversation.
Oh, thanks.
It flows very well. One thing I didn't mention, did you, I imagine your interaction with the record label itself was rather limited because you came into the project so abruptly.
Yeah. And I, look, I'm one of these people when I stepped off I'm like Pretty Poison and Catch Me I'm Falling was a huge hit. And the first act signed by Virgin, I still never got royalties because I don't follow it up. And I should. I talked to him. In fact, I talked to a lawyer about a few months ago and said, Kurt, you really need to follow that shit up. But I got it,
What band was that? Sorry.
It was called Pretty Poison.
Pretty Poison.
And they were a dance act, and they got signed, and sold over 1 million records, and I just never followed up because I stepped off of that world, and I just went into my advertising thing. So I'm 100% guy, I just, okay, next, but it's okay, anyway, great luck to you. Yeah, send me some of the links that you have.
I'll send you the Martin Downey Jr. thing right now. Just got it up on the screen, and I'll put it onto your Facebook, and I'll show it. It's the entire episode. I'll give you the timestamp and all that stuff. But as this moves on, I'll keep you in the loop, mate. Thank you very much.
Wish a great deal of success with everything you're doing.
Cheers, dude. You too. And your life.
All right, take care. All right, thanks.
Cheers, mate. All the best.
Bye.